Begins by showing the main character, Lee Niffen, who is sad and stopping something that will disappear from him, which is a system that exists within him. The reason the system disappeared is because Niffen has become a perfect cultivator, so the system has nothing else to teach Niffen. Niffen is sad because for 5 years the system has taught him many things, from physics, chemistry, English, history, music, sports, politics, and so on, and getting all perfect grades from the system during those 5 years. But Niffen still does not realize that he is a strong person. He still does not know what the purpose of learning all of this is, whether he should fight monsters. Niffen is transferred to a world where people can fly, monsters can laugh, monsters can swallow him in just one bite. It is a cultivator's world that makes him really scared. Niffen tries to find the immortals and hopes to learn from them directly, but the immortals he has met say that he is considered to have no spiritual roots, which means he will remain immortal for the rest of his life. Niffen is afraid of death that can come at any time, because he is just a mortal who chooses to live in a hidden mountain far from the city, and he is afraid that he will be dragged into the battle of the immortals. He is given a piece of land where he currently resides by the system when he masters the subject of architecture, and is also given a robot that works similar to an AI or artificial intelligence of a robot in the world when he masters the subject of chemistry, and a purebred dog that he saved from the streets. Although sad, he is still happy. He feels that it is not a problem. It is not too bad for him to remain an ordinary person and live in peace for the rest of his life. At least clean air and beautiful scenery always greet him every day compared to the previous world. Switching to a woman who seems to be a princess of a kingdom accompanied by her servant, the princess is feeling annoyed because her father or emperor or king has been cruel to her. She is engaged to someone disgusting. The servant asks the princess to walk more slowly because the servant cannot keep up with the walking speed of the princess. The servant is afraid because she hears the sound of a monster nearby, while the princess still insists and tells the servant not to be afraid. Her chi is almost thickening, and she will be able to break through to the next level anytime. The monster is not a problem for her. While debating while walking, the princess stops because there is an entrance to a house in front of her. Of course, the princess does not know that someone lives in the forest. She thinks there should be no one who lives in the forest, but the architecture of the house is not inferior to the palace. The princess thinks an expert lives there. Without thinking long, the princess immediately invites her servant to visit, but the princess asks her servant to call her Miss and not Princess. With just a few knocks on the door, finally the owner of the house, Niffen, opens it and asks the princess to come in and asks about the purpose of her visit. The princess introduced herself as Luo Shu and just happened to pass by when she found out there was a house in the forest. She asked for permission to enter and visit. Niffen showed a calm and innocent face, but his heart was beating fast because the woman in front of him emitted a subtle chi and seemed to be a cultivator. Niffen thought that the heavenly system had sent him a lover. Here, Niffen thought that his system had died. Luo Shu asked for permission once again to enter and rest because she had been walking for quite some time. Without waiting long, Niffen immediately allowed Luo Shu to enter. He was also curious how long Luo Shu would stay at his place. Luo Shu replied that she was just resting for a while and would not stay overnight. Hearing that answer, Niffen was surprised because he had made a mistake. Niffen offered food and drinks, but he didn't know what kind of food to prepare because he had never had guests before. Niffen shouted for Xiaobei and asked him to cut the watermelon and serve it to their guest. Luo Shu politely declined because she did not eat watermelon. Watermelon was only for mortals, and there was no use for her to eat it. Luo Shu saw Niffen's yard and felt that it was not an ordinary yard. It seemed to have a supernatural power that soothed her soul. Soon, the AI robot named Xiaobei arrived with the watermelon, greeting the guest. Seeing Xiaobei, Luo Shu immediately became frightened and panicked because Xiaobei was a talking and living robot. Niffen, who knew that Xiaobei had startled his guest, immediately reprimanded Xiaobei to be careful and asked him to apologize to Luo Shu. Meanwhile, Luo Shu and her servant were still panicking, seeing the supernatural robot with exceptional spiritual intelligence. She thought that it was an immortal robot. Niffen asked Luo Shu not to worry because Xiaobei was just the caretaker of his house, a regular robot made using a specific principle and advanced technology. It was not something extraordinary, just a few small tricks, and there was nothing special about Xiaobei. Xiao Bei apologized for his startling behavior towards Luo Shu and her servant. Nifen said that it was a bit complicated to explain, but Xiao Bei was just an AI, created using certain principles and advanced technology. It was not something extraordinary, just a few small tricks. Luo Shu replied that she understood, but her expression showed that she could not believe it. Xiao Bei was undoubtedly a supernatural robot, but Nifen considered it just a simple trick. This was the first misunderstanding that occurred because, with Nifen's modern knowledge from his previous world, he considered Xiao Bei a small trick, but for Luo Shu, who had never seen it before, it was something extraordinary, equivalent to a treasure trove of the world. Hearing Luo Shu say that she understood only made Nifen more confused. According to Nifen, a cultivator was indeed extraordinary to be able to understand the abstract concept of Xiao Bei in an instant. Nifen then invited Luo Shu to sit and eat the watermelon, which he had grown in his yard. Nifen recounted how he couldn't even eat fresh watermelon without pesticides in his hometown. Nifen offered again to Luo Shu, and to honor Nifen, Luo Shu finally agreed to eat it but felt a little reluctant in her heart. Luo Shu took a piece of watermelon and looked at its beautiful color. When she bit into it, her world suddenly changed and was filled with very fresh water, and her reflection transformed into the figure of a god. What Luo Shu felt was spiritual qi flowing into her body. Her servant was worried about what happened to Luo Shu. When Luo Shu regained her senses, she said she had successfully built a foundation. With a spirited attitude, Luo Shu said that due to her lack of insight, she had waited for 3 years of suffering without being able to build her foundation. But today, she ate a piece of watermelon that not only contained spiritual qi but also contained insight, and she successfully built her foundation. Luo Shu immediately thanked Nifen and called him a senior for helping her break through to have a good foundation for cultivation. Nifen replied that he had not done anything. He had said from the beginning that he was not an immortal and was just an ordinary person. The watermelon he served was just an ordinary one, and it had nothing to do with Luo Shu's breakthrough. He also questioned whether he was old enough for Luo Shu to call him senior. Nifen's question made Luo Shu think hard. She thought she had made Nifen angry and that Nifen had hidden his identity as an immortal and became an ordinary person. She almost revealed Nifen's identity, and she felt that Nifen was angry with her. Then Luo Shu apologized for making Nifen offended. Nifen asked Luo Shu not to worry about it. Suddenly, Nifen remembered his dog named Blackie, who was loyal to him. He gave the remaining piece of watermelon to Blackie, which surprised Luo Shu. Nifen said he had nothing else to give Blackie, so he fed him with vegetables. Luo Shu was surprised that the watermelon, which contained spiritual qi and insight and might be more valuable than spiritual fruit, was given to a dog so casually. Luo Shu misunderstood Nifen again, saying in her heart that Nifen might be trying to tell her about the heavenly path, that all living beings are the same, and even dogs have the right to eat that fruit. Nifen not only helped her break through her foundation, but also did not hesitate to use valuable watermelon to teach her the law of heaven. Due to his immeasurable gratitude, Luo Shu gave Nifen a jade without Nifen knowing what it was. Seeing Luo Shu giving the valuable jade, her servant tried to stop her. Nifen thought it was a gift so that Luo Shu could eat his watermelon again, so he said if Luo Shu wanted to eat his watermelon again, she could come again another time. After a while, Luo Shu and her servant bid farewell to leave. On the way, her servant asked why Luo Shu gave the precious jade. Luo Shu said that if Nifen was a senior in cultivation and also an immortal, Nifen pretended to be an ordinary person, and that is what is called a true expert, and it is her duty as a royal princess to befriend experts. Even though Nifen was given a jade, she considered it as an ordinary stone. The most important thing was that Nifen had accepted her gift of jade, which meant they were already friends. Now returning to Nifen, who was looking at the jade stone given by Luo Shu, he asked Xiao Bei and Blackie to see the stone. Although it was just an ordinary stone and not large in size, for him it was a precious item, because it was the first gift he received from a woman. Nifen had not finished his words, but the jade stone was taken by Blackie and carried away, shifting to a forest near the residence where 3 young men were looking for someone and also the presence of a monster. Back at Niffin's residence, he was seen fishing in the pond at his residence while enjoying the day, but even until night, he still had not caught a single fish. With a puzzled expression, Niffin wondered why not a single fish had taken the bait. It was very strange. Didn't he sow fish seeds there? He accused Blackie of eating the fish in the pond. Of course, Blackie was surprised and broke out in a cold sweat, while Niffin still looked annoyed with a suspicious gaze, while Blackie, who was scared, tried to cover it up. But then Niffin didn't care about it. He would go out to buy other bait tomorrow. Maybe the bait he was using now was not liked by the fish. The next day Niffin was already in the city center. It turned out that Niffin was quite famous among the traders. Everyone greeted Niffin cheerfully. Everyone also considered him to be a great person, but Niffin felt that he was not a great person. In fact, he couldn't even keep a single fish in his pond. Niffin went to the bait seller to buy some. Niffin told the seller some things about the fish that were missing from his pond, but the seller said, "Has Niffin checked the quality of the environmental water and also the bait, because that is one of the factors why the fish cannot survive, or maybe there is a monster in the pond that is eating the fish." Hearing the word monster made Niffin immediately frightened. The seller did not give him any fish, but Niffin was given a turtle by the seller. The seller said that the type of turtle would settle in the pond and come to the surface during the day. Niffin was asked to put it in his pond to prove that if it didn't die, then the pond was safe and there was no monster. Niffin thanked him for the advice and would buy it, but the seller gave it to him for free. When Niffin was about to leave, he saw a woman crying because her child named Nanan had been captured by a monster. Of course, it surprised Niffin, because a pretty and cute little girl had been captured by a monster. Someone who comforted the mother said not to worry because 3 cultivators were looking for Nanan in the forest. Because of his high social spirit, even though he liked to be alone, Niffin immediately joined the conversation, offering to search for Nanan. He was very familiar with the terrain in the forest, so he would help with the search. People who know Niffin well are worried because there are many monsters in the forest. They are afraid that Niffin will also be captured. Hearing the word monster makes Niffin scared, but he tries to hide it and asks them to calm down. Niffin is now on his way to find Nanan in the forest, accompanied by Blackie. Niffin tries to convince himself that he can definitely find Nanan. He is really scared and hopes that the jade given by Luo Shu can protect him. He is curious if the jade can really protect him. Suddenly, Blackie stops and barks because he has seen a sign on a tree. When Niffin feels happy that there is a cultivator looking for Nanan, Blackie suddenly runs away, leaving Niffin alone. Niffin doesn't let Blackie go just like that. He immediately chases after him in the middle of the forest. 3 young men who are looking for Nanan are facing a monster named Luo Hao by Luo Xiang and Qin Shu. They are facing a leopard monster, but the leopard's attack is really too much for them to handle. Luo Hao and Qin Shu immediately fainted from just one attack, leaving only Luo Xiang. Seeing that only Luo Xiang is left, the leopard drools because the flesh of a girl is the best. The leopard is ready to catch Luo Xiang while they 3 can't do anything but hope someone will help them. Indeed, someone is coming from afar. The leopard is worried and guesses that it might be the master of the immortal Huanjian sect. But it turns out that it's Blackie who comes. The leopard underestimates Blackie. What can a dog do? A dog cannot possibly match it. It turns out that Blackie can speak. He orders the leopard to surrender before it's too late. Of course, Luo Xiang and the others are shocked to hear that Blackie can talk. The leopard underestimates Blackie once again, who is just an ordinary monster. Without waiting long, the leopard immediately attacks using magic. The blast of the attack even makes Luo Hao activate his defense. Unfortunately, the magic attack is swallowed up by Blackie without a trace, making him feel full. This incident creates a moment of silence because they truly cannot believe what just happened. The leopard is also shocked because its strongest attack was just eaten up by Blackie. Blackie stands up and puts on a scary face, warning that his master will come soon. He doesn't want to waste time with the leopard. Due to Blackie's anger, the sky suddenly becomes dark and lightning strikes everywhere. Above Blackie, a claw from his aura appears, making the leopard even more scared. Blackie jumps to attack the leopard, feeling that he cannot fight Blackie. The leopard kneels and begs for mercy, saying that it's just a small monster. But Blackie doesn't stop his attack and only says that it's too late. Blackie's attack directly pierces the leopard until it's flat. the dark sky slowly disappears from there. Chen Shu, who saw it, immediately prostrates himself before Blackie and thanks him for saving them. Blackie asked them to wake up and also told them that if their master likes the life of mortals or ordinary people, they should say that the three of them killed the leopard monster and Blackie had nothing to do with it. In other words, Blackie didn't want them to mention that he defeated the leopard when their master arrived. Luo Xiang was confused with the word master, so Blackie once again asked them to treat their master in a casual and non-formal manner, not to show too much formality towards him because he doesn't like it. Lastly, they should treat Blackie like a dog in front of their master. Hearing this made Chen Shu and the others amazed. Who was the master of such a strong dog? But they understood and would do as Blackie told them. Not long after, Niffen came and called Blackie. Hearing Niffen's voice made the three of them happy because they were about to see someone extraordinary. They truly saw Niffen with admiration, while Niffen slapped Blackie until he fell down and scolded him in front of the three of them. Of course, seeing Blackie being treated like that by Niffen made them surprised. Luo Hao really didn't understand what kind of immortal Niffen was, treating such a strong immortal dog like a normal dog, while Luo Xiang was excessively surprised. He said even their master couldn't scratch Blackie, but Niffen treated him like that. They kept distinguishing Niffen from their master, but they stopped when Niffen apologized to them. Niffen thought that Blackie had caused them trouble, so he introduced himself as Niffen, the owner of the dog. Hearing Niffen's name made Luo Hao feel enlightened. No wonder Niffen was hiding himself as immortal. Luo Hao immediately grabbed Chen Shu's head to kneel and show respect in the gentlest and most polite manner he could, but he was ignored by Niffen, who was instead interested in the body of the defeated leopard, which made Luo Xiang really surprised. Niffen asked permission to take a closer look at the body of the leopard and said that in the previous world, leopards were protected animals. Niffen also saw something coming out of the leopard's body, which looked like a yellow marble. Niffen was impressed and asked what it was. Luo Hao said it was the monster's core. For a monster like the leopard, its core was very valuable if used to increase cultivation, as it could increase it by at least 3 levels at once. Niffen was very impressed to know how valuable the monster's core was. It was really like a TV series he had seen before. Niffen grabbed Luo Xiang's hand and gave her the monster's core, asking her to keep and use it. Luo Xiang thanked Niffen for his kindness, but Luo Hao seemed to reject it because they accidentally defeated the leopard, so they didn't deserve to have it. However, Niffen still insisted that it belonged to them since they defeated the leopard. But Luo Xiang seemed to misunderstand, thinking that Niffen was testing her honesty, and taking the monster's core would mean death. Because each of them still did not have a way out for that, suddenly Blackie barked and was understood by Niffen. Niffen said that Blackie's idea was to take the core of the monster, and he would take the body of the leopard because he and Blackie wanted to try how the leopard monster tasted. Hearing that the monster would be eaten made the three of them surprised, but they eventually agreed to the idea. Niffen asked Blackie to carry the leopard, but hearing the command made Blackie surprised because he did not agree to carry it. Blackie immediately looked at the three of them with an intimidating face, as if telling them that they should carry it or they would be killed. The pressure from Blackie's gaze made them frightened. Finally, Chen Shu was assigned to carry the body of the leopard. Although he looked difficult to carry the body, Chen Shu still said that if he had a strong body, the leopard's body was nothing. Chen Shu asked Niffen not to tire Blackie out, while Luo Hao carried Nanan, whom they had found. Luo Xiang happily asked if Niffen had ever visited the Huanjian immortal sect, and next time she would take Niffen to visit her sect because the sect master was her father. In Niffen's heart, he felt that lately the immortal cultivators were very kind to him. Had he crossed over to the world of harmonious immortal cultivators? Not long after a long journey, they finally arrived in the city and Nanan immediately ran back to her mother. Of course, everyone praised and thanked Niffen, but as usual, Niffen said that he didn't do anything, the three cultivators did it, not him. Hearing that from Niffen impressed Luo Hao even more because Niffen didn't even take advantage of it to be praised by people and instead gave all the goodness to the three of them. Niffen then invited them to rest at his house because they must be tired, he would process the leopard and they could eat it. Not long after, they arrived at Niffen's residence and were greeted by Xiaobei. Seeing Xiaobei, who could speak, made Luo Hao and the others half surprised. Niffin, who was worried about them, said that it was not a magical robot, but just a little trick. In Niffin's heart, he felt like he had a déjà vu. Should he explain to everyone who saw Xiaobei? Niffin invited the three of them to come in and not be shy. Luo Xiang called Luo Hao, who immediately responded. He knew what Luo Xiang was going to say, that if Niffin said a spiritual intelligence robot with spiritual intelligence was just a little trick, then spiritual intelligence was just a small trick in Niffin's eyes. After they sat in the living room, they still couldn't stop being impressed with the contents of Niffin's house, seeing the perfect square of the table, the perfect circle of the glasses, the floor that was better and smoother than glass, and the chairs they were sitting on were very soft. It felt like they were holding their own buttocks. Just that made the three of them really amazed. Were the heroes living in the world like that? Not long after, Niffin arrived and asked them not to be formal and to treat the house as their own. But they seemed very hesitant to act informal. In Niffin's heart, he wondered if they were impressed by the modern interior design of his house. Zhen Shu called Niffin to ask about an object in the corner of the room, a square-shaped object. Hearing Chen Shu's question made Luo Hao and Luo Xiang glance at Chen Shu, thinking that it was a question they wanted to ask. Niffin casually said it was an air purifier or humidifier, a technology to purify and refresh the air. Chen Shu was so excited that he said it was not just fresh, but it. Before he could finish his sentence, Chen Shu suddenly fell weak. Seeing Chen Shu's behavior, Luo Hao put on a serious face and reminded him that Master Dog had told them to act normally and treat Niffin like an ordinary person, and if Niffin said it was just an air purifier, they should just agree. Niffin also introduced a water dispenser that could purify water, showing them how to use it and pouring water into their glasses. They were all impressed because the water they drank contained a lot of spiritual qi. Afterwards, Niffin said goodbye to them and went to the back to prepare food. They could enjoy their leisure time there, and if they needed more water, they could get it themselves. They thanked Niffin for his kindness, but after he left, they showed their tense faces. They were really scared because they had almost caused trouble. They didn't want to provoke Niffin any further, and if they caused trouble with an expert like Niffin, no one would be able to protect them. While Luo Hao and Luo Xiang were talking, Chen Shu was wandering around the room, touching the objects in the room. Of course, Chen Shu's behavior scared Luo Hao to death, and he asked Chen Shu not to touch things recklessly. Chen Shu asked Luo Hao not to worry and promised not to be careless. He just took the discarded scroll. Luo Hao was still very scared and asked Chen Shu to be careful. Chen Shu invited them to open the scroll. Once again, Luo Hao was really scared and asked Chen Shu not to act recklessly. But because they were curious, they opened the scroll, trembling with fear, and found out that it was a painting. It's like he being drawn into the painting. Someone in the painting is in a boat holding a sword as if chopping Luo Hao's body in half. Luo Hao feels the sharpness of the sword. Because of how absorbed he is, Luo Hao looks dazed to his friend's eyes. After being called a few times, Luo Hao finally comes to his senses and tells them that he also felt the sharpness of the sword in the painting, as did Luo Xiang, but not Chen Shu, who seems to be the dumbest among them. Luo Xiang is curious about the reason why Niffin threw away the painting. Suddenly, Niffin approaches them again, wondering if they are talking about him. Luo Hao apologizes for touching things there without permission. Niffin sees the scroll that Luo Hao is holding and says that it is a sketch that he threw away. He was just drawing for fun, and it's just a simple sketch that doesn't represent his painting skills at all. Hearing that it's just a sketch makes them even more surprised, a sketch that doesn't represent Niffin's painting skills at all. Luo Hao trembles with excitement and asks if they can have it because it was just a discarded sketch. Niffin, embarrassed that his ugly painting is liked by them, says that they can have it if they really like it, and they don't need to apologize and thank him, it would be embarrassing for him. Unfortunately, because of the system that taught him to draw, no one likes his drawings. He feels happy because someone likes his drawing this time, and giving it away for free makes them bow and thank him, surprising Niffin who doesn't know what to do. Luo Hao quickly tells Luo Xiang that if it's not too late, they should send the painting back to the sect because they are afraid of something unexpected happening. Niffin is confused by their words. Do they think he will retract his words and ask for the painting back? Nifin's words make Luo Hao panic and explain that it's not what he meant. After a brief conversation, Luo Hao asks for permission to say goodbye and quickly return to the sect. They thank Nifin for his kindness and they won't forget it. Luo Hao and his two companions immediately leave, flying on their own swords. Nifin, who sees them leave flying on their swords, feels envious. He feels that compared to them, he is just a lowly person. He is not surprised that even the system says that he doesn't have the talent to cultivate immortals, even though he has the desire to become a hero and save the world. Moving on to Shu, the princess of the nearest empire, she was walking enthusiastically with someone. The person asked if what Shu had felt before was just a dream of meeting someone in the forest who helped her break through. Luo Shu confidently said it was not a dream. It turned out that the person with her was her mother. Luo Shu looked stressed because since her father asked her to marry Duan Maoli, she had not been able to sleep soundly. Their goal was to meet Nifin, and Shu's mother said that if the expert Shu talked about found a way to solve her problem, it would be best. Otherwise, marrying Duan Maoli was Shu's duty as a princess. Back to Nifin, who was relaxing in the yard while waiting for his roasted meat cooked by Xiaobei. As he was about to choose the flavor for his roasted meat, someone knocked on his door, which turned out to be Luo Shu and her mother. Luo Shu apologized for visiting without being invited, and she introduced her mother, Zhang Shu, who had an intimidating expression on her face. Nifin was a little scared seeing Zhang Shu's sharp and intimidating gaze, but in his heart, he was happy because she was beautiful. Nifin welcomed them in, and he had just finished making lunch. Xiaobei saw Nifin and said that his roasted meat was ready. Nifin asked Xiaobei if they had guests, and Xiaobei understood that they needed 2 additional tableware sets. Seeing Xiaobei surprised Zhang Shu, Shu told her mother that Xiaobei was just an electronic device that could only be found at Nifin's house, but her mother thought it was too much. Xiaobei then greeted Zhang Shu and welcomed her. Hearing that Xiaobei could talk made Shu even more shocked. She felt that compared to Xiaobei, the royal treasure was nothing but garbage, so Zhang Shu's attitude immediately changed. When Shu acted a little rude to Nifin by asking if the food was edible or not, Zhang Shu immediately scolded her daughter for being disrespectful to Nifin. Luo Shu was really surprised by her mother's drastic change of attitude. Upon hearing Shu's question, Nifin asked Xiaobei to serve the meat immediately with the best and most delicious flavor. Xiaobei quickly and efficiently served it as instructed by Nifin. Shu and her mother ate the grilled meat, almost shedding tears because of its delicious taste. The amount they ate was finished, and Nifin offered to give them more, but Shu and her mother fought for it, and the last piece went to her mother, which made Shu annoyed even though she was the first one to see it. After finishing their meal, Nifin asked them why they came to see him. Shu became serious and started telling him their purpose. The first thing she did was to introduce herself as the princess of the Qianlong Xian dynasty. She wanted to make a special request for her visit this time. Shu confidently told Nifin not to be surprised when he found out her identity, but Nifin showed no reaction. Shu told him that her father had just ascended the throne, but the kingdom was not stable. They were suffering from unavoidable hardships due to the 2 powerful ministers who held important positions. The minister forced her father to marry her off to one of the trader's sons, with the goal of achieving future peace through the marriage. Seeing Nifin still unresponsive surprised Shu. Even Nifin was not surprised, as he was an extraordinary expert and must have seen everything. After hearing the story, Nifin concluded that it sounded like a soap opera. Hearing the word soap opera confused Shu and her mother. Nifin continued saying that he had seen many versions of such stories. His words caused another misunderstanding as Shu and her mother thought that Nifin had lived for thousands of years and witnessed various political events in different kingdoms. In other words, Nifin had seen various countries and dynasties. Shu still misunderstood and said that Nifin was extraordinary, and she did not make a mistake by asking for Nifin's help. She felt saved. Nifin felt sorry for Shu as she was a victim of politics, and he asked her not to worry and to listen to his story first. Nifin then told a soap opera story that he had seen on TV. After a while, Shu was really impressed and asked Nifin for advice and enlightenment. Nifin gave advice and told the details of a novel. Hearing the details of the plan really impressed Shu and her mother, and they thought Nifin was an extraordinary person. But Nifin thought it was a novel that he had read, and he actually wanted to live the life in the novel but had no chance. Shu's mother was still impressed, saying in her heart that Nifin was very frightening, so frightening that they could not make Nifin their enemy. After a few more discussions, Shu and her mother said goodbye and left because it was getting late. On the way home, Shu told her mother not to be angry because she had given a valuable gift, a precious jade, to Nifin. Her mother understood, but she thought it was not enough and it was not excessive to give the jade to Nifin because he had helped them. After they returned home, they had to go to the treasury and prepare a big gift for Nifin because it was their chance to meet an expert like Nifin. Back to Nifin, who was still lying relaxed under the sun, looking at the jade given by Shu. According to Nifin, it was a simple carved stone. Although it was just a stone, it was a gift from a princess, which was very meaningful to him. Nifin also hoped that in the future, the royal family would protect him. Nifin also decided to change the shape of the jade because he had learned how to carve it. Blackie just looked and did not respond to what Nifin said, and went back to sleep. Nifin had finished carving the jade and hung it in front of his house. He was seen peering at something by the pond, but suddenly became angry and said that it was normal for him, who was not a regular cultivator, to be afraid of monsters. Xiaobei and Blackie certainly don't understand why their master said that when they didn't do anything. After stalking the turtles in the pond for a while, Nifin concluded that there were no monsters in the pond. He had been spying on the turtles for several days and they were still alive. Nifin looked calm and even happy, then he returned home. Moving to a place called Double Sword Peak in the Huangji sect, there are two groups of cultivators in this world. The first is the Celestial Dynasty and the second is the sects, and Huangji sect is one of them. The origin of the Huangji sect is explained. In ancient times, when the ancestors of the Huangji sect were practicing swordsmanship, they split Mount Qi into two with just one strike, and the mountain was named Double Sword Peak, thus the Huangji sect was formed. However, as time passed, the strength of its disciples deteriorated from generation to generation, and finally the feared one arrived. A disciple was seen bidding farewell to the sect master, intending to leave the Huangji sect. The sect master seemed upset with the situation and could only drive his disciples away. It would be better that way. The sect master then looked in a certain direction on the roof of a pavilion where a sword was embedded in the roof. The reason for the sect's destruction was because of that sword. A woman now meets the sect master. Apparently she is the master's wife, but here the woman refers to the sect master as senior brother. The woman reported that some disciples were reluctant to leave the sect. They said they would fight to the end. She could not drive them away. The sect master asked not to sacrifice anything. The demon had come to provoke the Huangji sect by placing the sword in the sect. He could not remove or draw the sword. He couldn't even get close to it. 3 years ago, a demon sword suddenly appeared. Using a damaged sword, the demon challenged a sect called Sword World alone, but in the end, the sect disappeared. In this world, there is no one who dares and is able to draw the demon sword. How could he be compared to the demon? The sect master asked the woman to also leave the Huangji sect, let him bear everything. While talking with his wife, Luo Xiang, the time had finally come. Luo Xiang reported that they had returned on their journey. She noticed fellow disciples. She only learned of the sect's situation, but before she could finish her sentence, an attack flew towards them. Of course, that raised questions for Luo Xiang. What did her father mean? Her father sadly said they should not have returned. It would be better for them to leave now. If they didn't want to, he would force them. Luo Hao spoke up, saying that they had found a treasure on their way back. Luo Xiang explained that the treasure was a painting. They met an expert on their journey. The expert's dog could kill a big monster that even they couldn't defeat. At the expert's residence, there is also a square box that emits spiritual energy. Even the drinking water and tea use spiritual energy. The expert gives the painting to them, but the sect master feels that they have been deceived by the door-to-door salesman. The sect master is still not convinced and thinks they have been fooled. Luo Xiang tries to say something, but the sect master gets angry, takes the painting, and throws it into the air. He draws his sword from its scabbard and intends to destroy it, but suddenly someone appears from within the painting and stops the sect master's sword. Of course, the sect master is surprised to see the person inside the painting. Then a bright light and a loud noise come out of the sect master's body. The sound and vibration are felt far away, and the disciples who have left them think it's an earthquake, but one of the disciples explains that it is not an earthquake, but the sect master has successfully broken through to a higher level of cultivation. The cultivation realm, which is arranged from the lowest to the highest level, is divided into several stages: practicing qi, building foundation, saving, yuan-ing, out-of-body experience, tribulation integration, divine test, and Mahayana. Luo Hao, who sees his master succeed, feels very amazed. The expert only gave a painting, but the painting could improve the cultivation of the sect master from yuan-ing to out-of-body experience. The sect master is still trying to stabilize his power and then opens his eyes to look at the devil sword above. It turns out that the owner of the devil sword has arrived, which surprises them all. Wasn't the promised battle supposed to be tomorrow? Why is the devil already there? The devil feels curious. These children are truly extraordinary. The devil calls the disciple of the Huangji sect kids, even though he himself is only 3 years old. The devil smiles happily because the sect master has prepared himself well to fight against him. Without waiting long, the devil immediately approaches the sect master to fight. Their strikes clash against each other, but the devil is still too strong for the sect master to handle. The devil's final attack causes a huge explosion, and it seems that the sect master has been defeated and lying on the ground. The devil feels bored with the sect master's power, which can only withstand his attacks for a few seconds before losing. Finally, the devil decides to leave. The sect master's wife helps her husband and says, "He almost had it." Hearing the words "almost had it" and "it's a shame" make the devil stop and come back. He throws the sect master's wife aside and grabs the sect master's collar, saying that if it's true that the sect master was close to winning, then he cannot die yet. There's still a little time left. Does the sect master not consider him when fighting against him? The devil behaves like an ally who encourages the sect master, even though he is the villain here. He shows the painting to the sect master and says that although the consciousness of the devil's sword is strong, compared to the painting, the devil's sword's consciousness is just a speck of dust. The devil tried to see the painting, but he immediately destroyed it and said that it was fake. Crying, the devil said, "How can someone in this world draw such a consciousness of a sword?" Suddenly, a very strong killing aura erupted from the devil's body. He asked to be taken to the painter. He wanted to kill him. Luo Xiang would take him to Nifen, but she was stopped by Luo Hao. They should not bring him to the expert. They cannot let him get involved in the sect's affairs. However, Luo Xiang insisted because this was their opportunity. Luo Xiang took the devil to Nifen's residence. He asked the others to wait there. She would take the devil herself. On the way, the devil tried to chat with Luo Xiang, but Luo Xiang immediately stopped him by saying that the devil should wait until he sees the painter. Then the devil would know if there was someone better. The devil said if he would wait, but in his heart, he was sweating and worried. After he said that, he had to think about how likely he was to win against the painter. Although the consciousness of the sword in the painting was very strong, he felt that if the painter had poured all his energy into the painting, and the painter did not have any power left, it would be easier for him. Shortly after, they arrived in front of Nifen's residence, and not long after, the sect master and his wife followed them. The sect master said that whatever the result, the three of them must bear the consequences. The devil felt disgusted by their actions, and he decided to kill Nifen immediately. The devil shouted for the owner to come out and kneel before him, but only the sound of the wind was heard. There was no answer from inside the house. Luo Xiang's mother did not understand why no one came out and answered. Luo Xiang replied, "Relax, maybe Nifen is out." Hearing that made the sect master surprised until blood came out of his wound. He said they were in big trouble. Since he did not get an answer, the devil decided to destroy Nifen's house. He flew with full force and swung his sword to destroy Nifen's residence. But what happened was a barrier that protected Nifen's house appeared. The devil was a little confused. It should not be like that. But suddenly, a giant phoenix appeared from behind the devil, which surprised him. The devil felt he had been tricked by the sect master and Luo Xiang. How could a phoenix bird be there? But if he felt he was a strong devil, he would not give up and run away. He had to uphold his dignity, so it was better for him to die. The devil flew higher to attack, but unfortunately, the phoenix's spit was very hot that just one spit made the devil disappear from the face of the earth. After defeating the devil, the phoenix bird went back into the jade hanging in front of Niffin's house. It was a confusing coincidence. Even the sect master was truly surprised to see the devil, who he thought was impossible to defeat, disappear just like that. Certainly, the expert is truly extraordinary. Even the expert did not look at the face of his enemy and only killed the demon using the jade. The sect master misunderstands that they feel there is always someone better than them. People who commit evil deeds will have a tragic end. The sect master's wife said it is a fact that the demon has been defeated, but what if the expert becomes angry knowing that their painting has been destroyed? The sect master is troubled by the thought. The sect master confidently said that they would bear the consequences, but Luo Xiang interrupted, blushing like someone in love, but he blushed not because of love. He said innocently that Niffin is not at his home and has not returned. What if they flee from there? Hearing this from their daughter's mouth made the sect master and his wife half dead with surprise. They thought Luo Xiang would offer herself to marry Niffin as a responsibility, but instead, she ran away from reality. But the sect master agreed with the idea. They should return first and visit the expert on another day after they prepare a gift. Before leaving, Luo Xiang wanted to take the demon sword, but was stopped by the sect master. The sect master said that the demon sword is an illusionary sword. Although it can increase the power of its user, the price to be paid is the destruction of the mind and transformation into a monster that no one knows how to kill. Since the demon has been killed by the expert, the sword will also be taken by the expert. After all the discussions, they finally returned to the Huanji sect, and the sword was still stuck in Niffin's house. Not long after, Niffin returned carrying firewood. He saw the demon sword left in his yard and was quite surprised. He shouted around looking for the owner of the sword, if someone dropped their sword there, but there was no response to his call. He wondered if the sword was no longer wanted. Niffin took the sword and felt that the sword was. Niffin stopped talking and put on a serious face, but then he swung the sword and cut a tree branch, saying that the sword was very sharp, and he would use it to split firewood. Blackie was heard barking anxiously. Niffin misunderstood that Blackie asked him not to take other people's belongings. Niffin asked Blackie not to worry, he would return the sword when the owner looked for it. The sword that Niffin held emitted evil energy around it, but Niffin could not see the aura and only felt a little warm in his body. Niffin felt that it was extraordinary, a sword that could make his body warm, while Blackie could no longer bark and resigned himself to his owner becoming an idiot. A demon inhabiting the sword appeared from the sword, but Niffin could not see it. The demon laughed and whispered to Niffin, asking if Niffin wanted revenge, if Niffin wanted power, if Niffin wanted to become famous. He would give all of that to Niffin, but Niffin looked bewildered, looking around as if hearing mosquitoes buzzing. Knowing that not even Niffin was influenced by his words made the demon confused, his offer had no effect on Niffin. The demon sword was even more shocked and lost all of his dignity. He was only thrown into a corner with the firewood and Niffin quickly left the place. He thought of Xiaobei's prophecy that he would be lucky and it had come true. He felt very happy. The demon sword called out to Niffin to see if he was still there, but no one was in the room. The demon was once again mentally affected and considered trash. Suddenly, a demon came out of the sword. He was very confident because he was a powerful demon, and he couldn't back down because of such a small thing like Niffin. He would make Niffin pay for treating him like trash. He saw the door that Niffin had just used with Blackie and quickly flew through the room to find Niffin. But suddenly there was an attack that destroyed his body, yet there was no one in the room. How could there be an attack like that? After waiting for a while, the demon reappeared and looked around. With cold sweat, he searched for what had hit him and would destroy him. He saw a brush and realized it wasn't an ordinary brush, it was a brush to draw the final line. The demon panicked even more. How could such a high-level magical object be in that house? But the demon concluded that it was just a coincidence. He just needed to find another way to avoid the brush. The demon walked slowly and crouched over a shelf to avoid the brush. He could indeed pass by the brush, but the cabinet he was stepping on was a magical object that immediately destroyed his body. After a while, the demon appeared again with a grimace. He convinced himself that he was a professional demon sword and a high-level treasure, and that he couldn't possibly have trouble just passing through a room. Now, the demon tried to crawl slowly past the cabinet and the brush, feeling sad that he was made like that by the cabinet and the refrigerator. Just as he was thinking about this, another attack from another object appeared, but the demon managed to avoid it. However, in the next attack, the demon's body was immediately destroyed. The demon cried in despair. He appeared again, but only sat next to his sword, battered and bruised. He asked where he was. Desperately, the demon tried again, but even the floor was a high-level magical object. Tentacles emerged from the floor and wrapped around the demon's body, taking him to a different place. The demon was suddenly in a beautiful world full of green plants and colors. There was also a small monk there. The demon was a little worried and asked who the monk was. The monk said he was Langsapatra Sutra. The demon couldn't wait and immediately tried to attack the little monk, but suddenly an attack came directly at him. The attack was only from the monk's movement and words, and the more words the monk spoke, the more attacks came. Now the continuous attacks keep striking the devil until he's helpless, and he feels that it's already too much. The little monk then approaches the helpless devil and tells him that it's time for him to convert to a new religion. Hearing the offer, the devil is left speechless and finally screams, realizing the terrifying place where he is now. Moving on to Niffin, who is taking care of his garden with joy, suddenly he sees that the turtle he received from the fish seller has grown very large in just 2 weeks. Niffin is impressed, but he also suspects that something is not right. Isn't the growth too fast? But Niffin throws away his negative thoughts and concludes that maybe the fish seller gave him a rare species. Niffin leaves to thank the fish seller for the gift of the turtle. In the pond, he sees the turtle swimming, but at the bottom of the pond, he sees the tail of an unknown creature. Niffin is now at the market and meets the fish seller. He wants to buy some fish for eating and also to thank him for the gift of the very large turtle, which has grown as big as him in just 2 weeks. The fish seller doesn't believe him and thinks Niffin is exaggerating. After dealing with the fish seller and getting his fish, suddenly the sky becomes dark and birds fly in the sky, and the streets are crowded with people, making it difficult to move. Niffin looks distressed because he can't even move. He wonders what is happening and then sees a banknote floating in the air, making him realize the reason for the crowd. There's a funeral in the city, and many women are wearing makeup and white clothes. Money is also scattered, and there is a coffin that is not completely closed. People who attend the ceremony whisper that if it's true that Miss Ching died. Everyone is still talking about the funeral, and Niffin tries to get a closer look to see if it's really a funeral for Miss Ching. Niffin asks for the cause of Miss Ching's death. Wasn't everything fine a few days ago? Someone explains to Niffin that it happened a while ago when Miss Ching's delivery process didn't go well and no one could save her. The person continues that if someone dies with a baby in her womb, she will become an evil ghost. Niffin understands. Shortly after the explanation, the body of Miss Ching is taken out of the coffin to be buried. She's a beautiful woman dressed in all white and has a swollen belly due to her pregnancy. Niffin also feels sad about Miss Ching's death, but when he mourns, Blackie barks loudly beside him, making him panic and ask Blackie to be quiet. How could Blackie laugh on a sad day like this? Blackie didn't stop barking and seemed to be telling something to Niffin, and it turned out that Niffin was surprised as he understood what Blackie was conveying. When a worker was about to close Miss Ching's coffin, Niffin tried to stop him, saying firmly that Miss Ching was not yet dead. The worker did not believe him, and Niffin pointed to Blackie as the source of his knowledge. This made the worker angry, and he warned Niffin not to joke around and to take the burial seriously. However, Niffin was no longer there, as he had approached Miss Ching's coffin to check if she was still alive. Niffin had put on gloves he found somewhere, and he checked Miss Ching, who had experienced a phenomenon called apparent death. In the medical field, it can be difficult to detect a pulse in cases of apparent death, but the most important conclusion was that Miss Ching was not dead. Niffin looked serious and confirmed that he would try his best to save Miss Ching. The seriousness of Niffin's words made Miss Ching's husband understand, and he allowed Niffin to try. Those who saw Niffin's actions thought he was reckless and rude, and they predicted that he would face problems. Suddenly, there were many surgical tools next to Nifin, and he was even wearing a doctor's mask and outfit. This made people wonder where the items came from. Finally, Nifin reached into his pocket and pulled out a large operating lamp from his Doraemon pocket. People were even more surprised to see such a large object fit inside Nifin's pocket. Nifin placed the lamp in the right corner to illuminate the operation process. He was grateful for having learned something before leaving the system. He was grateful that the system had taught him modern medical science for 5 years. Miss Chang's husband and others praised Nifin for being extraordinary. Miss Chang's husband said that there was a chance that Nifin could save his wife. Nifin began to perform the operation. He took one of his surgical knives and immediately cut open Miss Chang's abdomen, causing blood to spurt in all directions, shocking everyone. They couldn't speak, while Miss Chang's husband was even more shocked, asking about his decision to trust Nifin. With an unapologetic face, Nifin asked one of them to become an assistant and help him. A frightened woman seemed reluctant to do it. Nifin still confidently said that he would perform a cesarean section, took out the baby. The woman immediately looked pale and didn't understand Nifin's words. Nifin took out the baby from Miss Chang's womb with the umbilical cord still attached and asked the other woman to cut it immediately. Holding a large pair of scissors, the woman trembled with fear, stuttering that she didn't know how to do it. But Nifin asked her to do it as usual. After seeing the baby's condition, the woman was amazed. Could the baby really be saved? She then praised Nifin, who was truly amazing, because the baby could still be saved. Nifin laughed a little and agreed. He asked the woman to hold her baby properly. Nifin took a small needle in his hand, which made the woman ask why he was taking the needle out. Nifin explained that the baby needed a shock to make him cry. Nifin stuck the small needle on the baby's scalp, and instantly the baby cried loudly, making the father cry with tears seeing his saved child. People were very impressed with Nifin and continued to praise him, but Nifin asked them not to exaggerate. Nifin turned to the closed coffin and asked what they were doing. The people who closed the coffin said that Miss Chang had sacrificed her life for the newborn young master, but they couldn't bear to see Miss Chang's abdomen open like that. Of course, this made Nifin angry, and he yelled at them, "You guys are really stupid. Didn't he already say that Miss Chang was not dead yet?" Time passed, and Nifin successfully closed Miss Chang's operation wound. Miss Chang now breathed normally but was still unconscious. Nifin was really angry with those who arbitrarily closed the coffin. Their superstitions almost killed Miss Chang. People once again gathered around Nifin and praised him, while someone from the immortal Lingyun pavilion watched what Nifin did, a woman named Ling Qingyun. Qingyun, slightly intrigued, said that it was very interesting. She didn't expect Nifin to be able to save someone who was already dead. The woman continued to talk about some healing methods she knew, but according to her, it wouldn't be possible to do it that way. As if speaking to someone else, Qingyun said that she now understood why the person she was talking to refused help from the immortal pavilion Lingyun, who turned out to be Shu. Shu denied it, saying she didn't know Nifin, but her reason was flatly rejected. Qingyun asked Shu to tell her Nifin's true identity. Shu still tried to refuse to reveal Nifin's identity, but Qingyun continued to press Shu in various ways, which eventually made Shu angry. Shu stood up and said that she didn't like Nifin and immediately left Qingyun alone. Shu's statement made Qingyun more curious and confused, but she thought it would be very interesting. Back to Nifin, who was sneezing because he felt people were talking about him. He felt happy because he was praised, as seen from his face. But Nifin said that he didn't help them to be praised. It was very embarrassing. Blackie, who saw his master's behavior, put on an annoyed expression because it was clear that he liked being praised. On the way, Nifin was stopped by a call from someone who was Aunt Zhang, Nanin's mother. Aunt Zhang immediately knelt down and asked for Nifin's help to save Nanin. Seeing Aunt Zhang's attitude, Nifin was confused. Aunt Zhang explained that after Nanin returned from being saved by Nifin, Nanin came back, but her soul didn't, and she didn't react at all. So Aunt Zhang asked Nifin to save her daughter. Nifin checked Nanin's condition and found that it was severe post-traumatic stress. Nifin immediately apologized to Aunt Zhang because he couldn't save her daughter. Aunt Zhang asked why Nifin couldn't save her daughter with tears in her eyes. Nifin said it was because he didn't study clinical psychology. Hearing Nifen's words that Aunt Zhang didn't understand, she was perplexed. Nifen apologized again but promised to meet Aunt Zhang when he found the solution. Aunt Zhang understood and apologized for bothering Nifen. Seeing Aunt Zhang and Nanan leaving, Nifen felt guilty for not being able to help them. He felt that in the end, he was just an ordinary human who was useless because he couldn't save everyone. He was annoyed because he wasn't a cultivator like the sect master and the others. As he walked back, Nifen tried to find a solution and would ask the sect master later. It turned out that someone was following Nifen. Continuously, even until he arrived at his residence, Nifen was still being followed by that person, who was Qingyun, along with Shu from earlier. Qingyun guessed that the Qianlong dynasty was very good at hiding something. She didn't expect them to hide Nifen deep in the forest. She felt very proud of herself because her eyes were very sharp and her insight was extraordinary. Finally, she could find Nifen's residence and decided to see what kind of person Nifen really was. But before he could take a step, suddenly Sect Master Huanjian, his wife, and Luo Xiang arrived. Of course, Qingyun was surprised by Sect Master Huanjian's arrival and immediately greeted him and the others. In her heart, she said that although Huanjian's sect was not as good as Immortal Lingyan Pavilion, Sect Master Huanjian was still the leader of the sect. Qingyun was full of questions about why Sect Master was there and was Huanjian's sect not currently facing the demon sword? Sect Master scolded Qingyun for being absent-minded and asked about Mr. Yun's news. Mr. Yun was Qingyun's father, and once again Qingyun was surprised by Sect Master Huanjian's change in Conj Thr call for his father. He used to call him Senior, and now the Sect Master called him Mr. Yun. As if understanding what Qingyun was thinking, Sect Master Huanjian put on a happy yet arrogant face, saying that thanks to the help of a certain expert, he was finally able to break through to the out-of-body experience stage. Qingyun was truly shocked and disbelieving, and her surprise made Sect Master Huanjian even happier and more boastful. He also said that the demon sword had been defeated by the expert, which was why Huanjian's sect was blessed to be able to meet the expert. The expert in question was Nifen. Qingyun became even more curious. She also remembered what had happened and what Nifen had done, from helping Shu, defeating the demon sword, helping Sect Master break through, and even resurrecting the dead. Did Nifen really do all of that? Qingyun's perspective changed in an instant, looking towards the entrance of Nifen's residence as if sensing a very ominous aura, as if she was about to be swallowed up and enter an unknown world. Qingyun asked fearfully if there was someone in this world who could do such extraordinary things. Qingyun continued to think hard about the possibilities, but it only made her more stressed. Sect Master and the others had already gone to Nifen's residence, and Luo Xiang did not understand what Qingyun was doing, yelling strangely like that. Sect Master asked Luo Xiang to let Qingyun be, because she was just as crazy as her master. Sect Master asked them to leave immediately, as he did not know what had happened to the demon sword they had left at Nifen's residence a few days ago. Luo Xiang knocked on Nifen's door once, but Nifen immediately opened it as if he had been waiting for their arrival. With a smile, Nifen welcomed Luo Xiang, and Luo Xiang introduced Sect Master and his wife as her parents. Qingyun suddenly broke into the conversation, and Nifen was surprised to ask who Qingyun was. Qingyun introduced herself as Qingyun, a good friend of Luo Xiang.